My name is Jack McCall, and I've been a missionary now for 2013. So that is, I think, I don't even know how many years that is. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, I've been in missions for now 11 years with YWAM, and I first started my journey in actually as a youth in my local church, and that's how I got a calling into missions. So my local church here in Barbados took a youth team to Guyana to serve there with a YWAM base, and that was an eye opener to me to YWAM, but also to missions. Um, in that trip, I remember we went to an area in the interior, which is pretty far up in the jungle territory. It was like a day's travel to get there by bus and river, but mainly by river. And I just remember when I got there, and you can see the conditions the people were living in were far different to what I'm used to. And it just was a complete eye opener to me that the world is actually bigger than I thought. And through that experience, it actually opened my eyes to see, that there are so many people out there that need Jesus in so many different areas of the world. And I think one of the biggest things for me was when I got back, from that trip and I got home, and I can turn on a light with a switch. Just remembering that those people, had to literally drive down the river to get gas, to bring it, to put it in a generator, to start the generator, to then only run electricity for like 3 hours on a night. And it just was like, wow, I've grown up in so much privilege that I didn't even realize until I went to another country and had another experience, that I realized how privileged I was even to have tap water, running water, a toilet, because there we were using pit toilets, and it was just totally different. But it was life-changing for me, and that is what caused my heart to stir for missions. And I remember when I got back from that trip, I was still in school, primary school, but no, I was in secondary school. But I just remembered that from that moment, I was like, I need to go into missions, because there's so many people out there that need to hear about Jesus, that don't even have the privileges we have, but yet they're still hungry for truth and hungry for Jesus. And that experience is what brought me into missions. So as soon as I finished secondary school, I just went straight into YWAM, and I knew that that's what I was to do, because God had put that call on my heart to go to the people of the nations and share Jesus. So since then, my journey has now been 11 years, and one of the highlights for me in my journey was in my DTS school, which is discipleship training school that YWAM offers. And I did it in South Carolina in the United States, and my outreach was to South America, Colombia, Ecuador, and Panama. And God just showed up in so many ways in that trip. I mean, just miracles and just testimonies kept coming everywhere we went. And here back home, I wasn't really seeing that. And I guess it's almost because the privileges we have, just keep us back from really going after the things of God. We kind of live in a comfort when we're home, but when we leave and go to another nation, it's just a whole different experience that we see God move. And I do believe God can move in our nation as well, and I want to see that happen. So I desire that same hunger and thirst from the youth now, to have that hunger and thirst to go after what God has called you to do. But I will share a testimony on my trip. So when I was I'll share two testimonies. The first one was, well, they actually kind of tie into each other. So, so when I was in Ecuador, we were going to a tribal area, kind of in the interior, but it was a little bit more developed. They had cart roads and vehicles and stuff. But anyways, that's where we went. And on the way there, the guide we had that was taking us there, who was from Ecuador, he told us we will be passing the house of Jim Elliot. I don't know if you're familiar with Jim Elliot, but he was a missionary that went to Ecuador many years ago and actually lost his life trying to reach an unreached group, and then the wives came after and actually were able to reach the tribe for Jesus. There's a movie on it, so it's called End of Despair, so you can watch it. But anyways, so I never heard about it at that point either, but I got explained, and then we drove past his house, and then we went to this area which was like 100 miles away from where Jim Elliot was actually killed in the jungle. And some of those people in that community were actually from that tribe as well, like generations come down. So it was a good experience. But I remember while I was there, we were staying at a little church, and the church was very small, but it was not very active in sense of, they would meet on Sundays, but there was nothing after that, and I had a heart to see a youth group start there, because they had lots of children and youth in the area, and God had put on my heart to while I was there, to start a youth ministry, like a youth group every Friday. And we were there for about 3 weeks. About 3 weeks. So I remember the Lord said, okay, with the team, I told my team that was with me that I feel like the Lord's saying we need to start a youth ministry here. And it was around the same time there was a lot of political going on, because they were changing governments or something. So there was political stuff going on, campaigning. And so we had planned this youth group the Friday night for people to come. So we went door to door, invited people to come. But when we realized, just literally down the road, there was the same time there was going to be a campaign for one of the political parties. So there would be a speaker, and everybody would obviously wanted to go there and be drawn there. So we didn't know how to compete with that. But we felt the Lord say this is what we were to do. And I remember they had these trucks driving around with megaphones on the top, and they were sharing, like the political party, come out tonight. We have the speaker coming here, and just politically sharing all the government stuff and inviting people to the campaign that night. And I remember we were in the house we were staying in right opposite the church. And we were just there, I think, having lunch or something. And then all of a sudden, because you can hear the megaphones, going around the little community. And then all of a sudden, because I didn't know Spanish too well then, but I knew enough to pick up a few things. But all of a sudden, we heard the truck noise start promoting our youth group. And it was like, what? It just started sharing, like, come to the youth group. It's tonight on Friday. And it was going around the community sharing about our youth group. And it just was like, it didn't make any sense, because they were promoting, their political thing. And then all of a sudden we're hearing about it, going around talking about our youth group. So it's almost like it just went and did all the evangelism for us and drawed all the people. So I remember that night we came and we set up, we had it all ready, and it was for like 7 o'clock. And we had like maybe a few youth there, mainly from the family we were staying with. And, I felt, a little bit down, because, we wanted more. And then there's the political party we're competing with. And I remember 7 o'clock, we just felt, okay, let's just start sharing what we had planned. And by 7:30, the place was completely full of youth and people. I mean, even on the sides looking into the church, it was so full. And it was just amazing. And so many people came to Jesus that night. So many youth. And we shared, about continuing this effort. And we even were praying to God, well, when we leave, who's going to continue, And that was the Friday night. So then the Sunday comes. And I remember we had a church service, because they did that on Sunday. And these two people showed up that weren't there before from the last time. And they had just come to the area, and they were two missionaries that felt a calling to come and serve in this area in some form of youth. And they ended up being the ones that actually would take over the youth group while we left and would lead it for a while. And I just thought that was amazing to see how God brought all those pieces together, which was really cool. So continue the story. And then we went to Panama after this. And I had shared about Jim Elliot when we passed his house, and we heard his story, and we watched the movie, The End of Despair. So I get to Panama now, and different area, different everything. And we're going to another interior group in Panama up the river, about a day's journey. And when I get into this group, one of the tribal people came to me and said, "Did you watch the movie End of Despair?" I'm like, how did you even, like, why would you ask that? Like, how did you even know? Like, you didn't know anything about where I just first time meeting this person, and that's like one of the first things he asked me, and I was like, well, we just came from the area where the movie kind of very close to where it all happened in real life, and then he said to me, do you know that movie was filmed right here in this tribe? We were the actors, and I was like, what? So I ended up meeting the actors in the actual movie, and they actually got to live the same story because they were acting it. That tribe was where it was filmed. It was where the movie was completely done. We saw all the areas where the movie was filmed, and I met the actors, and I have pictures with them, and it was just like mind blowing to see how God did that, because we had no idea that's where we would end up in Panama, and it was just an amazing miracle, and we were able to share what happened in Ecuador with them and encourage them, and it was just so amazing to see what God had done in all this stuff. So that was cool. Yes. So yeah, my encouragement to all of you, to those who they have that little burning sensation inside that you're like, something's telling me I need to do more. Something's telling me I need to go further. Because that's how it was for me. I always had this little fire inside of me that I can feel this sense that there's more that I need to do for God's kingdom. There's more God is calling me to do. And I encourage you to go after that. Don't put that aside, really go after it. Take the time to go on a mission trip with your church. Take the time to go on an outreach with another organization that is doing it, because God is going to meet you there, and you're going to experience so much miracles and so much testimony that God's going to bring. And as much as we went out there and changed people's hearts and lives, the biggest impact was my own. And for me, it was life-changing for me, and it has matured my faith, matured my growth in God. And I just can't see myself ever turning away from this life that I'm living now, because of how much God has done and brought into it in my own journey with Him. And yeah, I just encourage you to really step out step out and take the risk, because it is a risk, and that's why we live by faith. And God will meet you there, and God will show you amazing things in your life, and through you He will bless the nations. So that's my encouragement. I have many more testimonies I could share, but I think that should be good.